Well, we've got reports of missiles hitting a farm in Poland near the border with Ukraine. CBN's Chuck Holton is in Ukraine now. And Chuck, what are you hearing there where you're at?
That's right. Well, it's been a busy day for the Russians here in Ukraine. They have probably fired more missiles today at this country than they'd have at any other day since the start of this war on February 24th. And they say about 100, a little over 90 missiles and 10 Shahed drones fired into this country. The vast majority of them were shot down. Ukraine is getting very good at sort of interdicting these missiles when they come in. So all but about 17 of them were shot down. But of those that struck targets, 2 actually went across the border into Poland and struck a village in a farming community there just across the border. Now, the interesting thing about that is that they're saying that these missiles struck somewhere between 1 and 5 miles inside Poland. So that's a little more than just a near miss, and struck a village in an area that's completely surrounded by farmland rather than. So either it was extraordinary bad luck, or it was a provocation. And it's hard to say. People here in Mykolaiv that we've been talking to are saying, well, they're very grateful for the help they're getting from the United States in shooting down these missiles. They pointed out that some of the missiles that were shot down today were actually shot down by surface-to-air missiles sent from the United States that just got here yesterday, and haven't even been in country 24 hours and are now doing their work, saving lives here in Ukraine. So they are not sure what to think about this. They obviously, this is a really bad thing if Russian missiles are going across the border into a NATO country, and that could signal the start of a real escalation in this war.
What's your gut here, Chuck? What are the possible explanations for, as you said, not a near miss? I mean, a couple miles off range into another country, especially when there's all the NATO implications here, and that's sort of been an ongoing sort of issue about where these NATO nations are falling on this whole war. What is your gut telling you, or what are the possible reasons for something like this?
Well, now there are multiple, and none of them are good. You can't imagine really that Russia would have wanted to shoot missiles into Poland, knowing that it would garner some sort of response when they're already on their back foot. Their troops are losing to Ukrainian forces just about everywhere, and just having suffered this big defeat from down here in Kherson, right near where I am now. This attack today with all these missiles is kind of feels like a temper tantrum more than anything. But if we look at what we do know about the missiles that went into Poland, open source intelligence is making the assumption that these were SA-300s, some variant of those. That's got about a 370-pound warhead, if I remember right, from my days in the military. And so, it's a big warhead, but it's not big enough to take out a whole village or anything like that. It'd be big enough to take out a house in the village. I've seen the effects of those SA-300s right here in Mykolaiv. Just around the corner from where I'm standing, there's a hotel that was hit by one of those, and it took out a couple of floors in the top of the hotel, but didn't take out the whole building. So they are inertial guided missiles, which means they're notoriously inaccurate because they were originally made during the Cold War in the 1960s to carry nuclear warheads, and close is good enough with a nuclear bomb. But if anything, this is nuclear level incompetence on the part of the Russians, because if you're going to be firing something that's notoriously inaccurate anywhere near the border with Ukraine, you probably would want to include some sort of fudge factor so it didn't go in there. And that leads some of the people here in Mykolaiv to speculate that perhaps it was a false flag operation by NATO wanting to get into the war, or at least scare Russia into thinking they were going to get into the war. But it's anyone's guess at this point.
Very, very interesting. So, Chuck, what are the people in Ukraine? I mean, you've been going around there now. You've been there for quite some time. What's the general mood of the country? I mean, this has been. I mean, we started talking to you back in February when this thing started. Still going on. You've talked about the defeats that Russia keeps getting handed to them. What is the mood of the Ukrainians there?
The Ukrainians have kept their morale high throughout this conflict, but it's approaching jubilation at this point because of what's going on here in Kherson. If you remember, this city was the first major objective that Russia went for, that they took, the first major city of about 300,000 people. And it fell rather quickly at the beginning of the war. And so the people in Kherson have been under the rule of the Russians ever since, for 5 or 6 months now, and supposedly 87.5% of those people voted to become part of Russia in this recent referendum that Russia held. But looking at the footage of the people in Kherson City as the Ukrainian troops roll in there, it's obvious that that was a sham, because those people are very, very happy to see their countrymen once again.
Absolutely. All right. So Chuck, where do we go from here? What do you see happening next in the next few days?
Well, I mean, there's going to be a lot
of
meetings and a lot of hand wringing, I can tell you that, with this possible escalation. I mean, we're talking about a very serious issue now that Poland is going to have to decide. Does it turn the other cheek, or does it actually get into this conflict in a kinetic way? And if it does that trigger Article 5? I mean, in any, reading of Article 5, this would have triggered it, because a NATO country has now been attacked. So I guess it depends on, what Poland decides to do in response and how measured that response might be. So it's only just happened literally in the last couple of hours, and so it's far too early to tell.
Yeah, they've even said in their statement they're still investigating it. They're not going to even say that they're. I mean, it's obviously fairly likely they're from Russia, but they're obviously being cautious, saying, well, we're going to investigate where these things are coming from. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. And we'll stay in touch with you, Chuck, as well on the ground. Stay safe out there. Thanks for spending a few minutes here, keeping us up to date.
You bet. Good talking to you.